In that late Cretaceous epoch, entirely torn asunder by razor-sharp teeth, brutal claws, and ceaseless territorial warfare, the destiny of every living creature upon the earth resembled a tightly drawn bowstring, perpetually balancing on the razor's edge of life and death. Yet, deep within that ferocious wilderness, where even the most formidable apex predators were forced to keep their eyes wide open in the dark, pacing anxiously through the peril-stalked jungle, a warm, incredible miracle was unfolding inside a hidden volcanic valley, defying every logic of natural selection. Tonight, by the gentle flicker of the hearth fire and through this narrative you need not burden your mind to remember, let us step together into the true life of the Baryonyx that dozes inside the ash-blanketed hot spring. Listen closely. In the crisp, serene midnight air, there is no despairing roar of a dying leviathan, but only the whisper-soft, exquisitely delicate, and rhythmic babbling of flowing water. Accompanying these watery sounds is a drawn-out, rhythmic respiration escaping from the fissures of the scalding rock strata, a slow, deep huffing marked by long, comforting pauses of absolute relief. This is the Baryonyx that dozes inside the volcanic ash spring, resting its multi-meter-long, croc-like, menacing muzzle heavily yet peacefully atop a warm, flat boulder blanketed in lush green moss. Its terrifying, 30-centimeter curved claw, which once tore through prehistoric fish and reigned invincible across ancient mires, now hangs completely loose and limp within the center of the warm, crystal-clear thermal pool, allowing the gentle currents to slide smoothly through its digits. From the surrounding night sky, fine flakes of volcanic ash drift slowly downward, dissolving silently the moment they touch the rising pillars of white steam, transforming into the gentlest backdrop for this midnight radio tale. The critical fracture of destiny split open during a restless, hyperactive twilight of tectonic upheaval, where the horizon bled with a terrifying, deathly dark crimson. Pungent sulphurous smoke billowed into black, sky-blotting clouds, ruthlessly swallowing the final remnant of warm sunlight and plunging the entire primeval jungle into a state of panic born from high psychological tension. Inside a narrow, rugged canyon where the riverbed had long since cracked and dried up, the dozing Baryonyx was confronting the most exhausted and bewildered moment of its existence. Its physical reserves had been thoroughly drained during a savage clash with a tyrannosaurid kin over a desiccated marshland, and a burning, deep-seated ache still throbbed across its streamlined, elongated spine where predatory teeth had torn through. That agony radiated along every single piece of its hardened osteoderm hide, seeping into its cerebral cortex as an inescapable anxiety, causing the world before its eyes to oscillate slightly with each ragged breath. As the formerly undisputed master of angling across this watershed, its early life had been a relentless stretch of high tension for territory and sustenance, enduring a harsh survival inside treacherous mires. The hypervigilant instinct forged in danger behaved like a crushing yoke, locked tightly between its bones and muscles, ensuring that it could never truly let down its guard, even during the safest, briefest of afternoons. Within the shadows flanking the canyon, a few agile, avaricious scavengers stepped firmly upon the scree, their eyes gleaming with cold ferocity as they waited for the exact instant this exhausted giant would permanently collapse. Dragging its footsteps as though its limbs were cast in solid lead, with every forward stride its massive tail traced a long, lonely furrow through the thick ash on the ground, heavy with a sense of tragic fate. It could not comprehend why life had to be an endless circle of slaughter and flight, or why, despite possessing heavy claws capable of tearing rivers apart, its inner soul remained tightly wrapped in boundless emptiness and dread. Just as it was about to close its eyes completely, ready to surrender its dozen-ton gargantuan frame to the cold, uncaring pile of rocks, the tip of its parched nostrils suddenly captured an unseasonal, paradoxical wave of warm vapor. It was a clear, warm stream of natural thermal current, quietly welling up from the periphery of the oldest magma core deep within the earth, meticulously filtered through countless layers of basalt and limestone. Devoid of the violent fury and devastation of a volcanic eruption, it gathered gracefully and unhurriedly within a hidden, rocky depression, coalescing into a warm thermal pool spanning several zhang wide. Regarding this sanctuary that exhaled faint white mist into the freezing, long night, the dozing Baryonyx had coolly and blindly surged past it countless times during its previous, high-speed sprint of a life. Yet at this precise moment, the instant it planted its cold, stiff hind limb into that warm water infused with a delicate aroma of sulfur, the primal warmth of Mother Nature instantly dissolved every hidden trauma across its body. Its colossal, elongated torso ground to a surreal halt inside the pool, the terrifying heavy claw, which had been raised and poised for an instantaneous defensive strike, slowly surrendered its tight tension under the hydrobuoyancy. Following the direction of the geothermal updrafts, it submerged its entire abdomen and broad chest with deliberate slowness into the warm current, hovering near a comforting 40 degrees, releasing a long, deeply relieved sigh. While the crisp night wind whispered softly through the high forest canopy, the thermal mist within the hollow billowed upward, creating a grand, white curtain of vapor that perfectly insulated it from the copper stench of the outer world. Involuntarily, it settled its elongated snout flatly upon a smooth, level boulder resting in the center of the pool, entirely blanketed in velvety green moss, using it to shoulder the immense weight of its skull. The warm waters coursed delicately through the crevices of its coarse, dark gray scales, producing a series of whisper-soft, rhythmic rustling sounds, like the tender caress of an old friend in the dark. Its cold eyes, which bore the weathered scars of 1,000 slaughters and escapes, finally surrendered. Under the soothing fumigation of the rising steam, its tightly wound eyelids closed with supreme, gentle obedience. Midnight completely sealed the boundless forests of the Cretaceous. The raging tempests out at sea and the predatory struggles across the mainland seemed utterly severed by this mystical barrier woven from volcanic ash and white fog. Within this freezing wilderness, which by all rights should have been saturated with lethal threats, where the mere quiver of a single leaf provoked absolute terror, the dozing Baryonyx discovered its eternal serenity. No longer did it need to ponder tomorrow's droughts, nor did it have to cultivate anxiety for the arch-nemesis lurking within the dark. This geothermal basin was its sacred citadel, purchased through its total surrender to the moment. The moonlight flickered subtly behind a thin veil of clouds, cascading down as faint, ethereal streams of silver-blue luminescence, resting quietly across its broad back patterned with prominent, rocky dermal plates above the waterline. In front of its nostrils, with every drawn-out, steady respiration, the warm puffs of air exhaled from its lungs fused seamlessly with the rising thermal vapors, expanding into a magnificent cloud of white mist. Exhale, a long, comforting suspension of breath. Inhale. The entire sequence was stretched to infinity by nature amidst the bottomless silence of the night, transforming into a highly mechanical and soothing repetition. This unconscious respiratory metronomy, harmonizing with the delicate white noise of the spring gliding over its scales, generated an unparalleled hypnotic magnetic field through the secluded glen, soothing every creature in the vicinity. A few small, primitive mammals, which had spent their day desperately scraping through the cracks of colossal dinosaur stampedes, blanketed in gray soot and shivering violently in the wind, now grew bold enough to creep out from the rock fissures. Lifting their bright, crystalline eyes, they gazed with deep reverence upon the grand behemoth dozing peacefully atop the boulder, sensing an absolute realm of safety emanating from its completely relaxed, non-threatening posture. They crawled softly onto the dry, warm sands bordering the pool, heated beautifully by the geothermal energy, and huddling close to the static contour of the weathered titan's resting tail, they too closed their eyes, sinking one by one into a profound slumber. As the hours rolled forward, the brilliant and mysterious primeval Milky Way galaxy of the Cretaceous spun soundlessly across the deep architecture of the night sky, selflessly pouring its infinite starlight over the ancient continent. The dozing Baryonyx had now entered an utterly unguarded, profound state of sleep, every single muscle fiber within its frame thoroughly stretching and unwinding under the immersion of the hot thermal spring. At the frontier of its dreams, the withering of the land, the skeletal dried-up riverbeds, and all the brutal combats waged for bare survival began to shrink to infinity, ultimately dissolving into a warm, crystal-clear, and boundless ocean. In its dreamscape, it was no longer a jungle predator required to brandish deadly claws for territorial dominance. It became as unchained as a weightless, ancient giant fish, cruising effortlessly through rivers that were eternally warm and bright. Those joints and ligaments, which bore the compounding traumas of relentless battles over the years, were being mended and smoothed out inch by the ocean-like warmth of the spring during this deep somnial self-healing. Listen, its deep, steady purring generated a low-frequency resonance that vibrated faintly through the warm tree hollows and rock faces, a sound that coaxed the tightly wound earth to settle down after a frantic day. Fine volcanic soot continued to drift down soundlessly, resting upon its rock-like crown and the fur of the sleeping little animals, behaving like a sheer, gossamer veil that draped over all the weathered hardships of existence. Within this absolute tranquility, where even the nearby volcanoes had ceased their violent eruptions. Its every exhalation of steam and every soft pop of rising water bubbles stood as the most sacred totem of sleep upon this primordial earth. Time entirely surrendered any metrics it once possessed, only the rhythmic babbling of the stream and the undying geothermal warmth remained in the long night, carving the ultimate definition of peace into the dark. Today, that Cretaceous epoch defined by the explosive clashing of titans and violent crustal upheavals has long since petrified into ice-cold fossils within the deepest geological layers through millions of years of continental change. The dozing Baryonyx, alongside that geothermal basin which had blanketed it in boundless tenderness throughout the long night, have together transitioned into silent, stone skeletons showcased in the recesses of quiet museum halls. Yet, the absolute relaxation and serene wisdom it discovered on that freezing, distant night seemed to pierce through heavy rock formations, echoing once again tonight. The night now is profoundly deep, the roaring traffic outside and the accumulated stress of the day have receded with the twilight, leaving only this sanctuary of quiet space reserved solely for you. Can you feel it? That warm spring water infused with a delicate aroma of sulfur, drifting all the way from the primordial volcanic valley, is tracing the contours of your weary thoughts, smoothing out your tightly wound soul. In this world, you do not need to brandish heavy claws at every moment to combat life, nor do you have to prove your strength to anyone. You are fully permitted, like the giant Baryonyx, to allow yourself to completely unwind at midnight. Let your thoughts align with the cadence of its extraordinarily slow breathing, watching the curling plumes of steam, feeling the drift of time and the delicate caress of the spring, mechanical yet utterly relaxing. As you envision that ancient water curtain closing softly in your mind and listen to that steady respiration echoing across hundreds of millions of years from the deep earth, your eyelids grow beautifully heavy, your frame weightless. The primordial night is gently carrying away all your fixations and fatigue. The warm dark behaves like a grand velvet blanket, holding you in a soft, peaceful embrace. Sleep now. The Baryonyx has used the tranquility of its entire life to guard this safest of prehistoric harbors for you. Close your eyes with total peace, and drift into a sweet dreamland completely free of care.